Back in 2008, me and my wife, who is also a vet, by the way, I don't know that I've ever mentioned that on here, but we decided that the UK was too wet and cold for us after we had a 3-year work and travel adventure there. But we also didn't want to go back to South Africa. So what is the next logical step? It's Australia, right? So here we are, close to 20 years later, and I have to admit I have close to zero regrets about that decision. Of course, there's family and culture and the familiar things that you leave behind when you immigrate. But as a place to live, to raise a family, and to work as a vet, I think it would be hard to beat Australia. And a lot of people know that and want to do what we did. Pack up your stethoscope and chase sunnier skies here in Australia. So every now and again, someone will ask me for advice on how to get into Oz as a vet. But 2008 is a long time ago, and my advice is very outdated. Other than, you should do it. It's great here. That advice remains unchanged. So, to create a sensible episode that will give you more up-to-date advice on how to go about getting your license to practice as a vet in Australia, I called in a favor from a friend who is all over this stuff. I'm Hubert Himstra, and you're listening to The Vet Vault, where we unpack the hard stuff that they don't put in the job ad, like, say, the multi-year, multi-$1,000 gauntlet of exams, visas, and paperwork that stands between you, a non-Aussie, and a vet job in Australia. Our guest for this one is Dr. Natalia Gomez, a Colombian-born veterinarian and co-founder of Brainy Bilby, which is a platform that helps foreign vets prepare for the notoriously difficult Australian veterinary exam, or the AVE. A bilby, by the way, is a small, ridiculously cute little Australian marsupial animal, nocturnal of course, and something that you would not know existed unless you lived right here in Australia. Kind of like information about the AVE and immigrating to Australia as a vet. Now, as a previous AVE candidate or victim, Natalia has made it her mission to help others do the same. Because when she went through the process, she found out that there was nothing out there to guide her. In this conversation, Natalia and I break down everything. Why Australia is such an attractive destination for vets, what makes the AVE so daunting, and the step-by-step roadmap for how to tackle it without losing your mind. We talk about the real costs, both financial and emotional, how long it takes, the biggest pitfalls to avoid, and what life is actually like once you've made it across the finish line. So, if you are a vet trained overseas and curious about what it actually takes to practice down under, this one is for you. I have so much respect for anyone who goes through this process. It's easy to forget what it takes to start over in a new country, and Natalia lays it all out with honesty, humor, and a ton of practical insight. Let's get into it with Dr. Natalia Gomez. Cool topic today. I am a foreign vet, but for somebody who is a veterinarian in any other country and they're considering moving and working in Australia as a veterinarian, that's what we're talking about. As you said before, and immigrating and working as a vet in Australia for Dummies 101.
Exactly, especially if you have to do the Australasian veterinary examination, which is what makes it very challenging, right? Like you were very lucky because you didn't have to do the exam. You just get your registration. But unfortunately for other people that come from other countries, including some developing countries like Germany, for example, they still need to do the exam. So that's a big, big, big hurdle in the process.
Huge hurdle. I wonder if I would have so willy-nilly moved to Australia if I had to face that exam. I think it 100%. May have actually put me off. Yeah.
Honestly, I have seen interns on the process of becoming a specialist when I was working as a vet nurse in Australia. I would dare to compare the process to becoming a specialist in Australia. It's just so challenging, requires so much study and sacrifice, and you also have to do 2 exams. Like when you become a membership, you have to do the membership exam and then the fellowship. So it's pretty similar, I would say, in terms of sacrifice and time commitment. Yes, it's massive.
Okay, before we get into the nitty-gritty and the exam and stuff, I want to start, and I have my own answers, but why Australia? Why bother is the first question. Like what drove Natalia to say, well, I want to leave Colombia and come and work in Australia?
Yeah, so I came to Australia when I was 18 to study English, and I loved it. I fell in love with the culture. I couldn't stay because, I was super young and stupid, and immature, and I couldn't. Well, my mother couldn't afford paying university here. As a foreign student, as an international student, the fees are super high. And I already had a secure place back in Colombia. I went back to Colombia after 6 months, but I knew that I wanted to come back. Like I fell in love first with the equalitarian culture. Like for Australians, the one that has a lot of money usually doesn't show it up, and everyone is kind of like the same. Like there is this strong strive for equality. In South America, it's really not that way. You really see the one that is rich really shows it. The one that is poor, you realize really poor, and that contrast is super strong. And animals as well. Like I loved how Australians treat animals, wildlife. The fact that you don't see stray dogs, that was a massive wow. I saw that and I was like, wow, it's just in South America, every day is a struggle. As a person that loves animals, you see the fact that Australians respect wildlife. So it's kind of like all of those little things that made me fall in love with Australia. So I knew that I wanted to come back, and then I did my degree, and as soon as I finished, I came back.
Okay. I'll add to that, and this is, I didn't know this before I moved, but what's it like working as a vet in Australia culturally? Because I've worked in South Africa as a vet, and I also worked in the UK for a stint. What I like about us, and this might be even be for people listening from the US or places that have very much developed high level of veterinary care, but Australian working culture is a bit more chilled than a lot of other places, I find. I don't know did you ever work as a vet in Colombia, or did you come straight here after studying?
I did not work as a vet. I did work as a vet nurse in my last year, and I did some rotating internships, but I did get to see the culture. And funny enough that you say that, when I graduated in Colombia, I was like, if I don't go to Australia, there is no way I'm going to work as a vet in Colombia. It's just, I just didn't like the way that things were for vets.
The things that appeal to me about ours, and this is speaking to a lot of American vets as well, and then it used to be similar when I left the UK, which was about 15 years ago now. It was quite similar UK to Australia, a little bit more chilled in Australia, more free time. I feel like the UK's changed from speaking to people, also very financially driven, quite a stressful industry versus, and then also American vets, they seem to work a lot, as in hours in the clinic seems a lot more than in Australia. Time off, like we've got 4 weeks paid holiday. Americans get like 5 days, some of them. It's crazy. I'm always like, how are you guys still alive? I remember when I started and it was a little bit like, this isn't right. I'm not working enough because I'm here 4-day week, 38 hours, and then some weekends, and that definitely Australians are much more lifestyle focused than many other countries. We're hardworking, but also there's a limit, and then I'm off, and that's completely acceptable.
I totally agree. It's completely acceptable. Australians is like they want to have good quality of life, enjoy the good weather, weekend, the beach, and do activities with its mates. So yes, I agree with that.
You're gonna make less money than you do in the US.
Yeah. But then you realize that you also need to live your life, right? Not everything in this life is having lots and lots and lots of money.
And the reason I wanted to highlight that, and I promise I don't work for the Australian Tourism Board or something, but it's a great lifestyle, because the first stumbling block, I do see it on chat groups a lot with international vets, is I'm considering moving to Australia. What's it like working in Australia and living in Australia? It's great. People worry about, am I going to earn enough money? Yes, you are. You're going to have a roof over your head. You're going to eat. You're going to get rich as an employed vet, but you're not going to be poor. There's lots of work. It's a fabulous lifestyle. Definitely worth trying. I mean, you could try it, and then if you don't like it, you can always go back wherever you want to live, but it's pretty amazing. I'd struggle to leave. Yeah.
That's a really good point, because the lifestyle was a massive, massive one for me. I realized that in Australia, you don't need to have lots of money to have a good life. You can go to this beautiful, pristine beach and enjoy on a Saturday, and it may be just 10 minutes from your place. You could even get on a boat with a friend that has a little boat, and to have that lifestyle in Colombia, you need so much money. Really?
I do like, as you say, a friend's little boat, because as a vet in Australia, you're probably not going to buy your own big boat.
Yeah,
But you can have friends with boats.
exactly. You can have friends with boats.
All right, let's get into the detail. So I've decided, I think I want to have a crack at it. And for quick background, just why are you the expert on this, other than you've gone through the process?
Okay, so I started Brainy Bilby with Dr. Antonella. She's an Argentinian vet. We started Brainy Bilby, which is the only Australian website where an overseas veterinarian can study for the ABE exam. The reason why we wanted to start with this is because when I moved to Australia in 2017 and I realized I wanted to do the exam, there was absolutely nothing other than a Facebook group. I didn't know anyone that had done the exam. If I were to ask someone in Colombia, they would say, oh, that's the hardest thing someone can do in their lives, doing the board examination to get their license. And everyone just say, oh, that is just so difficult to the point where they just put a barrier and that's it. It's just extremely difficult, end of story.
Mm-hmm.
But I really wanted to do it because when I came to Australia, I had to work as a waitress and do all of these little jobs to get by. And I was like, if I want to stay in Australia, I really want to get a good job. I want to get a job within my industry. So I started that journey investigating so much. I did so much research, try to talk to so many people. And during that process, I learned a lot and I realized that there was a gap. And no one knows anything about it. If you send an email to the Australian Boards Council, they say, oh, go to the website and that's it. And the website really doesn't have all the information and you just feel lost. I learned so much over the course of those years and having done all of the steps and the exam, now that I help other vets doing the same and going through all the same process, I learned from my own experience, but also from so many experiences from our students at Brainy Bilby.
You've made the roadmap on how to get
Exactly.
All right, so let's go through that roadmap. So step one, I'm on the starting block. I'm going to roll the dice, and where do I begin? Is it a write my exam first? Is it a get a visa first? Where do you begin?
Yeah, so there are different approaches. I guess the first thing is how to get to Australia, which we don't give any advice on immigration or visa, but it does really depend on the country that you are from. Because, for example, in the case of Colombia, unfortunately, you cannot apply for a working holiday visa. So that's way more difficult for us because we have to come here on a student visa and you have to study full time already. Whereas if you come from Argentina, let's say, you can apply to a working holiday visa. So it does depend on how you can get to Australia. In my experience, it's better to get to Australia, start to get used to Australian lifestyle, work, doing whatever you can do, and start your process within Australia. Because I've heard from other vets that want to do it being overseas because they don't have the money to come and pay for, let's say, an academic English course and then having all of those expenses, living rent, blah, blah, blah. So they decide to stay in their home countries. I think what I've seen is that the people that stay in their own country and start the process in their own country take way longer than people that come here. But it's important to know that everyone is different. And if that's your situation, you can definitely do it from your home country. Like I have students from India, from Indonesia, and Slovenia that are staying in their home countries, have been studying for 2 years, and some of them are doing the exam in 2026, and they are not coming until they pass the exam because financially speaking, they can't just afford to come here. And that's completely fine. It's possible.
And I will add, at the because I know lots of people, when they look at immigrating to Australia, get immigration lawyers, which is super expensive. I don't know if it's changed, but personally for me, we didn't use a lawyer, and the immigration website has all the detail. You just have to sit down, see it as an exam or a test, and go through it step by step by step. The information is all there. you're still going to have to do the work. Like the lawyer, they can't do it for you as long as you're applying for the right visa. Quick interruption here to tell us about some exciting things coming up for the vet world. You know those monkeys that sit around in natural hot springs in the snow looking badass? Well, that can be you. Because in 2026, we are heading to the home of those very monkeys in Japan for our second combined Vetvault Vets on Tour CE event. And I'm not calling it a conference because the word conference conjures up images of long days in large halls with no natural light and conference food and conference conversations. We are doing it differently. Like a conference, we will have world-class speakers, but they're not just lecturing at you. They're engaging with you in a small group, Vetvault style. And unlike a conference, our events give you most of your days free to explore and have fun. We pack a lot of CE in at the start and the end of each day. And in the middle, we are in the snow or in exquisite little Japanese restaurants or hiking or exploring or, like those monkeys, in the hot springs. Badass. We're heading there from the 23rd of January to the 2nd of March in 2026, and tickets are now on sale. Beyond the educational and the social component, delegates also get access to an exclusive accommodation bundle that includes breakfasts, lift passes, and our epic cultural evening. Yes, there will be sake, and yes, there is a hot spring. We would love for you to join us. Go to vetsontour.com to find out more. Okay, back to Dr. Natalia. Okay, so let's skip visas. Get the information. You can do it. It is possible. It seems overwhelming. I don't personally think you need a lawyer. I hope it's not bad advice. What else? What's the next stumbling block? Where do people get stuck?
Alrighty, so you are in Australia and you decided that you are going to do the exam. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to the Australian Veterinary Boards Council, go to the Overseas Vet section and read the PDF. Has really nice flow charts. But what you want to do, and you want to worry first about getting your English test done, because a lot of students get stuck in this point. The reason for this is because you need a high score in all the sections of the English test. You need a high score and depends on the exam. So I did the OET, which is academic English test. Some other people do the PTE, some other people do the IELTS academic. I think that you go with whatever you feel more comfortable. I personally think the academic IELTS is extremely difficult. I think that the OET is easier because it's related to your profession. So it's for professionals from the health industry, physiotherapists, doctors, veterinarians. And the writing and speaking section of the exam is catered for your profession. They don't test you on your knowledge, they test you on your English, but it is more relatable and I guess less stressful. For example, for the OET, the occupational English test, in that time when I did it, you needed a score of 7 in each section, which is a super high score. And where I see a lot of students getting stuck is because they have been in Australia for a while, they already studied English and they haven't been speaking and they feel super comfortable and fluent, they postpone the English for the last minute. So what they want to do first is they want to organize their study schedule. They want to sit down and get a routine. And when they have a routine, they say, okay, now I have a routine, now I'm studying, I'm going to start getting my paperwork and do the English test. And the paperwork that you need to get ready to apply for the exam plus the English test takes so much of your brain space and time that people become so stressed and they give up. And they give up also after doing the English exam, paying for the English exam, which is expensive, and not passing. They get super frustrated. They're like, why didn't I pass? I've been in Australia for X amount of years. They apply again, they don't pass. So my point with this is that with any exam, I guess, but especially for the English exam, is really not even about, oh, how fluent you are, you've been in Australia for 5 years or whatever. You need to know the exam. You need to know what they want from you. You need to know how much time you have for the listening section. You need to prepare for the writing part. You need to know that they're going to give you different scenarios and you need to write either a discharge letter for the owner, a referral letter for a specialist, or you need to know that in the interview they may ask you for like, hi, role playing, my cat has hypothyroidism. What can I do? And then all of these little things, you need to know how the exam is. You need to be super knowledgeable about that. That's where people make the mistake. There is a guy in YouTube, for example, for the occupational English test, OET, he gives all of these amazing tips. He was so helpful. I imagine for the PT is the same. You can buy PDFs on the OET website for the writing section, for the speaking part, and you can practice all of these things. And you can also buy a whole test, different test. You can time yourself at home and do it. So this is the most important thing. Even if your English is amazing.
I'll tell you a story. I worked with a vet back in Perth, British vet, and for visa reasons she had to go do. I don't know which one she did. I suspect she did the ELTS, and she failed. And she'd done a PhD in vet stuff. And she didn't prepare because she was like, well, I'm English. It's just a formality. And she didn't actually pass it. She was very offended.
Yeah.
So it is an exam. Go and prepare for it. It's great advice.
Yeah, exactly. I remember when I was working as an emergency vet nurse, and one of the vet nurses was a veterinarian from Italy. He had been in Australia for like 15-ish years. And his English was, like really good English. And he, after seeing me kind of studying and going for it, he's like, yes, I'm gonna do it too. I was like, yes, do it, you can do it. And he's like, oh, but I'll leave the English test for the end. I was like, don't do it. And he's like, no, it's fine. Anyway, he did it his way. He started studying really good. He had all the paperwork ready, and he just needed the English test. And he did it, didn't pass. He did it 3 times and didn't pass. And he's like, there is no way I'm going to do this freaking English test again. He was just so frustrated. He was just so over it because he didn't pass the exam. He still hasn't done it.
So jump the first hurdle first before you start committing all the other time. It's like the starting gun. The English exam is the starting gun. Don't try running the race before the starting gun because you're going to get sent back to the beginning.
Exactly.
Great advice. All right. So English exam done and dusted. I have that. Then what's next? Exam?
Yes. So then once you have your English and you have the score, you're going to get all the paperwork ready because it is a lot of paperwork. You need paperwork from your country. You need to be registered in your country, and you need to translate all of that paperwork. And something that I forgot to mention, which is very, very important, even before doing all of this, you want to check that your university is on the list of world universities, because not all universities from overseas have that extra recognition that allow you to take your degree to a foreign country. So for example, West Indies Islands. So there are the majority of universities from that area for veterinary science. They're not on the world of listed universities. That means that unfortunately you can't do the AVE. That means that you will have to study vet science again.
Okay, so there's different degrees of degrees. The first is, so like mine, like the South African degree, and I think British, where there's reciprocity, where they'll go, okay, cool, you can work here, no exam necessary. Next is, yes, you're allowed, based on your degree, you're allowed to come sit the exam. And then there's the, we don't believe that your vet degree is worthy vet degree, so sorry, you're out. You can't even do the exam.
And it can happen. Like even from my city, there are a few universities that are not on that list. So first check that. And then once you know that your university is there, then you need to get your paperwork. While you get your paperwork sorted, because that takes a while, you can get ready for the English test to study. That takes a chunk of time. Because when you have all of those things ready, you have to apply to the exam. It's not that they say yes to everyone. You need to apply, pay that fee, which is like, I don't know how much is it now, but it should be around 500, 600 to review all of that. And then they said, yes, we let you do the exam. But it's important to know that you have to apply and get accepted, and not everyone does get accepted.
What's it called? What's the exam called?
AVE, Australian Veterinary Examination.
Oh, simple. AVE. A quick practical question. You said your documentation, you need translated into English. How? Do you do it yourself? Do you have to pay for a translator?
You have
It sounds
to
like
pay for an official translator. Usually it's called NATI, is the one that the government prefers. NAATI is an official English translator. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Now I've applied and they've said, yes, we will let you sit our very fancy exam. Now what?
Now that's it. They leave you on your own. They don't give you anything. They don't give you resources. They don't give you any tips. You're on your own.
So there's not like a guide of here are the things that you need to know. It's just like,
Nothing.
wow.
That's the toughest part. You've done all of this work and you're like so motivated. And then you got accepted and you're like, okay, I'm going to pay the fee. You pay the fee and then that's it. You're on your own. So that's where I realized that there was a gap because it's just so stressful. You're like, okay, well, I need to know everything about large
Everything.
animals, cows, pigs, small ruminants, horses, exotics, dogs and cats. Where do I start, right? And imagine how overwhelming that is.
Very. That sounds huge. Quick question. Does your approval to do the exam lapse? Like how long do you have before you have to go sit your exam? How soon after can you sit it and how long can you wait for? Is there a time period?
The first exam is held once a year in April. So when you apply, you're applying for the intention to sit the next April. Yeah, you cannot get that approval and wait for like 5 years. You have to do it the next April.
Okay.
Yeah, let's say a year. Yeah.
Okay. So you have maximum a year to study, theoretically.
Exactly. Another big problem now that we're talking about sitting the first part of the exam is that I see a lot of overseas vets freaking out about the cost. They say there is no way I can afford that.
How much is it to sit?
Exactly. So that's a really good question. The application, when I did it, was around 500, but let's say in between 500, 600 to apply. You get accepted. Once you get accepted, you have to pay the MCQ, multiple choice questions. That's the first exam. When I did it was $4,800. I think that now it's almost $6,000. That's for the first part of the exam. When you pass the multiple choice questions, which is held once a year in April, they give you 5 years to do the last exam.
Okay.
And the last exam, when I did it, had a cost of almost $8,000.
So I had a quick Google it right now. So AVA eligibility, $508. Preliminary MCQs, $3,400. But then the final clinical exam is $9,200.
Yeah, okay. So they changed the prices a little bit. When I did it, the final exam was $7,000 and the MCQ was $4,500. So I guess, yes. Anyway, so a lot of people think that you need to pay all of that money at once. And of course, it's a lot of money. You don't. Even when you pass the first part of the exam, the multiple choice questions, if you get your temporary registration, you can work as a vet under supervision and you get 5 years, like I said, to do the practical. So even you can save money to do the practical. If you work for an employee that is very supportive, a lot of the times I've had students that the employee offers to pay the fees of half of the practical exam. That happened to me as well. In that time, my employee paid for half of the practical exam fee. So there are ways around it. So please don't get discouraged by the cost because everyone finds a way and we all come from overseas and we all struggle financially. Cost of living in Australia is expensive. The courses is expensive. Renewing the visa is expensive. So at the end of the day, save the money, work hard. Everyone gets through it and everyone struggles financially and everyone finds a way. So, yeah.
So, and just to be clear, I didn't know this. So once you pass, so there's the 1 year mark, then you do the multiple choice exam. And if you pass that, then you have the ability to work as a vet, just
But
under supervision.
Exactly.
So what does under supervision mean? Does it mean you can only work in certain types of practices, or is it just theoretically your boss has to say, yeah, I'll babysit Natalia for the next 5 years.
Exactly. That's a really good way of putting it. It's pretty much you need a babysitter. So you can't work as a sole practitioner in a practice, let's say on a Sunday. A lot of GP practice, general practice hospitals, they will open on Sundays and they may only have one vet. So you're not allowed to work as a sole vet and you're not allowed to dispense S8s on your own. You always need someone dispensing them, the S8s with you. But other than that, you can do everything else like a normal vet.
Okay, so you can do surgeries and
100%.
you're fully fledged veg. They just don't trust you with the drugs.
The only annoying thing is when you apply for those jobs, you're like, yes, I pass. I can get a job as a vet now. On the interview, you do have to say, well, if you give me the job, you have to sign this legal document. And that's not very nice. The document says that you are pretty much babysitting that veterinarian and that you are supervising that veterinarian because that veterinarian is still not fully registered. So because of that paperwork and because of the temporary registration, unfortunately, your salary is quite limited and you do get paid as a new grad.
Okay. That's my next question. Does it mean you're going to get paid less? Do you, with the people you work now, certainly a couple of years ago, there was such a shortage of vets that I wouldn't have imagined it would be too hard to get a job somewhere. Has it changed? Are the people on your course, are they finding it relatively easy to get jobs? Do you know?
To be honest, back in the day when I did the exam and I was fishing for jobs, I did realize that a lot of practices are a little bit reluctant to...
But this was pre-COVID, right?
No, that was after COVID.
Oh, really? Okay, wow.
Yeah, so a lot of practices were reluctant to just sign that legal document. It's kind of new, in that time was kind of newish for them. There are all the practices, they were super willing to do it. And I found a job. Initially, I applied to 2 places and they were like, yeah, no. And then I went to another place and straight away he gave me the job.
So for practice owners listening, if you're looking for cheap labor, find out who's done their MCQ 100%. Exam.
And to be honest, you're going to get the best employee probably because you're so motivated. All you want to do is finally work as a vet. You don't care about doing overtime. You don't care about like slaving your life away. All you want is to work as a vet.
I meant that as a joke, but you took it serious.
Oh, no, it's so true.
Can I ask you about that multiple choice exam? When I hear multiple choice, I always think, it's not too hard. Or how hard is it, let's say, compared to your original vet degree? Because I'm wondering, let's say you've super planned, let's say I'm a vet student, but I know I want to go to Australia. And if I have all my ducks in a row, could I say I do my final vet exams and within that next year, I'm going to do my AVE so that knowledge is still... Because if you tell me now, 25 years after qualifying, you've got to go sit an exam on cows and ruminants and stuff, I would fail. It would be very hard for me to study all of that. But if I've just studied it, how much harder was it than your, let's say, your original vet degree?
Yes, look, that's a very good question. I don't know if you relate to the day of your graduation at university. You graduate and you're like, I just realized I know nothing about veterinary science. How am I going to work as a vet? I know nothing. So even if yes, of course, it's better than having done your degree, let's say 5-10 years ago. But even we've seen students that have done their degree, let's say a year after moving to Australia, a year before moving to Australia, and you still need to study everything because unfortunately, yes, you need to know the Australian facts, which is super important.
Oh, yeah, true.
Be very aware with the Australian vocabulary in terms of veterinary science, lay terms, in large animals as well. So many words are kind of different. For horses, the way they call their joints, like fetlock, coffin bone, all of those things that you have no idea about. So it's a massive adjustment when it comes to studying. Also for epidemiology, you need to know the diseases that are threatening the border with Australia. It's just the protocols for, like, let's say, which is easier, Australia vaccinations, but, the diseases like may affect Australia, but it may be not as common in other places, like, let's say, cryptococcosis in cats and aspergillosis in dogs, like so many little things that you do need to know.
And again, just to be, because as you list these things off, I'm like, oh yeah, wow. That because I didn't do that exam, these are things I had to learn I had good experience with a lot of it from working in South Africa and then in the UK, but there were unique things, but I just had to kind of pick it up from my colleagues. If I had to do an exam on it,
Yeah.
and again, to be clear, beyond your course, there's no resource that said, hey, here's what you need to know as an Australian vet. This is what we call a horse's stifle joint in Australia.
Yeah, no. So the document that is on the AVBC website, it gives you a few practice questions and it says you need to know these major topics for each species, but it's very broad. Let's say horses, colic, pathophysiology of colic, cows, bloat. It's just so broad and it just doesn't really go into great detail.
And do you guys go into that sort of detail on the Brain Will Be?
Yeah, so
Okay.
we take the students and we gave them a calendar for 6 months. They know what to study. We give them every resource to study. We give them the Australian facts. We add them to a private group where we discuss everything. So they are supported from the moment they start until they finish. So that's the advantage with us. And that's where the gap was in the market, I suppose, which now we are helping overseas vets achieve their goals.
So again, that multiple choice, if you have the study resources, is it hard? Basically, what's the pass rate? And what, do we know? If I put the work in, am I likely to pass it?
Yes, so that's a very good question. We don't really know the pass rates each year. I know that last year the pass rate was 60%.
Okay. This is definitely not a given. That's not far from 50-50.
Yeah, and the exam has 2 papers. Paper 1 is basic knowledge in clinical science, so anatomy, physiology, pathology, blah, blah, blah. Second paper is clinical based, so it's all about cases in all the animals, but it is multiple choice questions. And then they have something like 10 questions scattered all around the examination to know what level of difficulty of questions they need to create for the following years and to see how many people get them right or wrong to kind of assess, the broad knowledge and all of that.
Cool. So after you pass that, then you've got some time, then you can work and study, and then it's the last exam. Did you say that's a practical exam?
It's a practical, but also it's oral. So a lot of students elect to do the practical exam on the same year. Some people elect to have a year off, like it depends on what you want to do. But yeah, it's practical hands-on experience in all the species, and also it's oral. So when I say oral, you sit down, you go to Gatton University in Queensland. And
is that the only place? Is that like, can you only do it at Gatton?
Only do it at Gatton, exactly. And if you are overseas, you do have to come to Australia to do that one. And so you only do it at Gatton. The oral exam is you sit down with 2 examiners. They have a computer with a PowerPoint presentation, and let's say they have a case about lameness in a cow from the beginning. You have a farmer that calls you because the cow has been lame for 2 days and the milk production has dropped by 20%. What would you ask the farmer? And then you and it's talking, and it's super scary. And every day, the exam in Gatton is a week. You're there for a week. It's not one day exam. You have to sleep there for a week, well, Monday to Friday. And every day you have multiple exams, a mix of oral and practical.
And would they put you in front of a live sheep and say, hey, do me a clinical examination on the sheep? Evaluate the lameness in this horse, that sort of stuff?
The funny thing about that is that I had no idea about how to tip a sheep. Have you ever done that?
Yeah, so our final exams at our vet school was the same. We had written exams, and then we had each subject, we had an oral exam with specialists, and exactly like that. Where you had to do stuff to horses, and tipping sheep was high on the list of shit you had to be able to do. And there's a knack to it, right? It's like judo.
So I was working as a vet nurse with small animals for years, and then I had to tip a sheep. I had to go to Taree, a town in New South Wales, to practice because I was So lost. It was so funny. But yes, you need to know how to do an oral examination in a horse, how to put the mouth gag, how to do a lameness exam in a horse, how to do a physical exam in a horse, know all your vital signs in every different animal, how to apply an epidural to a cow, how to do how to do rectal palpation to assess for pregnancy. They give you three cows, and the examiner says, okay, you have three cows. One is empty, the other one is pregnant under 3 months, the other one is pregnant above 3 months. You need to tell me which one is which one, and you have 30 minutes. And then the examiner goes away, which is nice. You don't have that pressure. And then you're like literally,
Pull out your little mobile ultrasound and scan them secretly.
oh my God. And it's just
Yeah, that's full on. And again, that was our exams, but the difference is that up to that point, that's what I've been doing for 5 years in a vet hospital, is do all these things with people. So by the time you get to that exam, you'd like to think you have some sort of based knowledge in that. But if I had to do that now, that's massive. How do you prepare for that, Natalia? Because again, I would imagine that the majority of vets who come across, maybe I'm wrong, but are smallies vets or want to do smallies. Is it like you did? Go spend some time with a regional vet somewhere, say, show me how to do rectals, how do I do a lameness exam?
So you need to contact on your own again. You need to contact, and unfortunately, we don't help students with this because we haven't really set up the practical part of the exam. You need to contact mixed practices or large animal hospitals across Australia. Say, look, I am willing to go to your vet hospital for 2 weeks and help you with whatever you need. And in exchange, I can be with you on the road and you can show me how to do this, and that. And eventually you'll find a good soul that will feel sorry for you and will say yes.
I mean, you can reframe it and say it's kind of fun. It's kind of different stuff to everyday smaller stuff, but it's time and commitment. That's the thing.
To be honest, the practical exam for me was the most enjoyable part of all the process. I absolutely loved it. It is just hands-on. You also have to sit down and review everything for the oral exams, but it's just so fun. It's just completely different. You're already working as a vet. You know that you have all of this time to do the exam if you want, and you're there on a town having an adventure with a large animal vet and doing all of these things. I enjoyed it so much. It was just the best experience.
Do you have to do surgery? Do they watch you do surgery and stuff or not? Not that practical.
You do. You have to do a spay or a cystotomy, one of those, in a dog.
Okay. Wow. Huge. And do you have any idea pass rate? But like, do you know lots of people who fail it still, the practical exam?
Okay, so that's a good question. With the practical exam also, there is this amazing part of it that the practical exam has very different components. It's just not one exam like the first exam, the MCQ. In the practical exam, you are allowed to fail only one section, and you don't fail the whole exam. So let's say you fail the spay, you only have to do the spay part again.
Okay.
Or
Cool.
yes, or you fail pregnancy palpation, pregnancy diagnosis in cows, you only have to do that one again. Or you fail the oral part of the equine exam, but not the practical part of the equine exam, you only have to do that part of
the next year.
Well, the practical exam is held twice a year, which is
okay. So over a 5-year period, you have to. It's almost like collecting badges as a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout. Over a 5-year period, you have to get all your badges to say I could be any of these vets at a basic level. Prove that to the examiners.
Exactly. That's right.
Cool. Wow. So I'm trying to think time commitment wise, the quickest that you could get through this whole process, starting from zero. In my head, I've got 2 years at least, 2 to 3 years. Paperwork included, as in I haven't done anything. Now I've got to do my English exam, the whole works. So let's say I've got the ideal scenario, I've got lots of money, and I just want to get through it as fast as possible. So about 2 to 3 years timeline?
I would say 2 to 3 years. That's right. Yeah.
Versus I've got to still work and have a life and all those other things. It's like a 3 to 5 year process, really, right?
Yeah, that's right. So it can extend up to 3 to 5 years for sure. But I feel like even 2 years is a good amount of time to do it. Yeah. In my case, the whole process, when I really started and committed to it and started to get the paperwork and all of that, the whole thing took me 3 years, but because when I was about to do the multiple choice questions, they canceled it because COVID was just getting started, unfortunately. So then they postponed it for a whole year. So then I was doing all of those things for 3 years, but I was gonna do it everything on 2 years if it wasn't for the COVID.
Okay, cool. That's really interesting. So tell me, and then probably the last part of it is actually working as a vet in Australia, or even on that process. Were there any surprising challenges, things that you didn't think about or didn't consider that you went, oh, this is harder than I thought, or flip side, this is way easier or better than I thought? Anywhere along this process, all the way to actually being in practice, working as a fully fledged qualified veterinarian in Australia?
Yeah, I guess getting that trust from people definitely takes time. When I say trust, it is in the way of, oh, like you're a good vet, and I
Do you mean clients now? Do you
Oh
mean?
no, even with colleagues. So when I started working as a vet in Australia, when I had limited registration, there were still a lot of things that I didn't know, or some surgical procedures that I didn't know, or even some names of medications that the trade name would be different in Australia, and a lot of people. I find that they struggle to kind of understand your journey, and they kind of misjudge that by, oh, this person doesn't know enough. So I found that. So you really have to gain the trust of people. But once you get the trust of your colleagues and staff, it is pretty good. But there are also some workplaces that are very, very supportive with overseas veterinarians. Something for me also was kind of the English, even though I think that my English is not really bad. There are some things that I struggle with in terms of culture and belonging. So, for example, which is nothing associated to being a vet, because in a workplace where everyone is local, like I live on the Northern Beaches and everyone is Australian, they talk about something like a cartoon from childhood and they joke about it, and I'm just there lost. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't know what they're talking about. Do I fake it? Do I try to laugh? Or should I just be that person? No, I don't know what you're talking about. And that happens all the time.
I find making fun of them for it when they have some cultural reference, and I'll just go, you guys know that the rest of the world has no idea what you guys are on about. You have your weird little 1980s, 1990s Australian cultural references, and it's way over my head. You're right. It's taken me, how long have I been here for? 15 plus years, and now I get a lot of that stuff. But yeah, you're right. They forget that the whole world didn't listen to the same music that Australians listen to, the same TV shows and breakfast cereals and stuff like that.
100%. But for example, sayings as well, sayings in English. So, for example, the other day I was at work and I was talking about actually the Mighty Networks part of the Vet Vault, where you ask all of these questions about difficult cases. And I was telling one of the vets, oh, this specialist said this. And she asked me his name. And I was like, oh, this is his name. And she's like, oh, he's a mover and shaker. I was so lost. I was like, a mover and shaker. And to me, it sounded like a good dancer. And then I was like, I had the courage to ask. I was like, oh, it was the meaning.
What does that mean?
What do you think it means? I was like, good dancer. And she just laughed so much. So he's someone that has done a lot of important things.
It's a good point, actually. I find reading Australian literature, but not literature, but books, fictional books, helps for that a lot. Like I specifically focus on reading books authored by Australians, because a lot of that you'll pick up, they'll write about that sort of stuff, terminology, and so non-vet related stuff. TV, watching a lot of Australian TV, old Australian TV. Start by watching The Castle. Have you watched The Castle, Natalia?
The Castle.
Yeah. Yeah, if you watch The Castle, you're halfway there. You get about half the jokes that Australians make.
Yeah. I have to watch it with subtitles though, because that is just such a strong Australian accent.
I think that's super, super useful. I admire what you did to do that exam. That's huge. It takes a lot of courage. But I will also say, and I'm saying this as a middle-aged person looking back on your life and career, a lot of these things that seem massive when you're in your 20s and you go, 3 years or 5 years. And it's the same with specializing people. I didn't specialize because it was felt too long and too expensive. But time passes so quickly, and it's very easy to waste 5 years, to be stuck in the same. I can say that 100%. I was stuck in a job for 5 years that I didn't really want to be in, that wasn't going anywhere, and had no particular plan. And the whole time you're thinking, I should do something else. And then you blink and it's 5 years and you go, I could have specialized by now.
Yeah.
By the same token, I could have done my Australian exams now. So a little bit of hard now, a little bit of suffering, and it passes.
It passes.
I don't know how you feel about that.
Permanent. That's right. Yeah. That's the second point, isn't it? Don't postpone it because it's too hard. You don't want to sacrifice this and that. Time will pass regardless. And at the end of the day, 3 years, 4 years of your life in the scheme of things to achieve a big goal like, you will be able to get a good job.
3 years and $15,000, which sounds massive. But then once you're working as a vet in Australia, it's a large amount of money, but you'll spend 3 times that on a stupid car at some point in your life. You may as well invest it in your future, in your earning potential and future and lifestyle.
Exactly.
So where do people find you, Natalia, if we want help with that exam? Because that sounds, the prospect of doing basically my entire veterinary exams over without any guidance sounds petrifying. I think any help you can get. Where do we find you?
So you can find us at Brainy from Brain, Brainy Bilby from the animal with Y at the end, .com.au, the website out there with all the courses, with a blog for you to read stuff.
We're just talking about Australians assuming that the rest of the world knows what we're talking about. But what the hell is a bilby and why bilby as your animal?
I know, because we wanted, of course, the name to be somewhat Australian, and a bilby is such a cute little marsupial, and it's an Australian native animal. So eventually we kind of came with the idea of Brainy Bilby, and it kind of sounds cool.
It does. It certainly catches your attention because you go, what the hell is a bilby? If you don't know. They were very cute. Some random, obscure Australian nocturnal marsupial with pretty large ears. Google it. It's cool. They're cute.
They're so cute. Yeah.
All right, Natalia, thank you so much for spending the time and for setting it up and helping other people get to where you are.
Yes, of course. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me at the Vet Vault. You know that I am a massive fan of the Vet Vault.
Before you disappear, I wanted to tell you about my weekly newsletter. I speak to so many interesting people and learn so many new things while making the clinical podcasts. So I thought I'd create a little summary each week of the stuff that stood out for me. We call it the Vet Vault 321, and it consists of 3 clinical pearls. These are 3 things that I've taken away from making the clinical podcast episodes. My light bulb moments. 2 other things. These could be quotes, links, movies, books, a podcast highlight, maybe even from my own podcast. Anything that I've come across outside of clinical vetting that I think that you might find interesting. And then 1 thing to think about, which is usually something that I'm pondering this week and that I'd like you to ponder with me. If you'd like to get these in your inbox each week, then follow the newsletter link in the show description wherever you're listening. It's free, and I'd like to think it's useful. Okay, we'll see you next time.